Hello, everyone, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Better the Pond Pondcast, where we talk to amazing people doing incredible things that lead the charge of generosity. My name is Warren Berry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions, where we believe that everyone is not duck, but that's what makes them awesome. Today, our guest is Randy McCoy. I do not know if any kid growing up ever said, when I grow up, I want to be a CFO. From Randy's humble beginnings in Douglastown and Gaspè, Quebec, Randy just had a way with numbers. He could see how they all came together with ease. Even his parents and grandparents were in awe of his wizardry with numbers. Randy is also about community, is a master communicator, and a natural teacher. Randy is bettering the financial pond through Junior Achievement Canada and teaching grade 8 students financial literacy. He also volunteers through the Community Connect Network by teaching their financial literacy program. Randy is also the financial wizard for the Ottawa Therapy Dogs, helping youth schools and rehabilitation centers by utilizing dogs to help people with mental health problems. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you Randy McCoy. Randy McCoy.
Hey, Warren, good to see you again.
You as well. You know what? I really want to thank you for taking the time to come join me on my Better the Pond podcast. It is fantastic to have you. And I have to say that I have been haunting you and harassing you for probably about the last year or so, or year and a half, I think, to actually finally get you here.
It only feels like it's that long.
Yeah, so we met, probably a year and a half ago, I guess, through Tech
the
Canada.
Tech event was great.
Yeah, and since then, worked with your companies, so Novos and Data Kinetics. And before we jump right into the meat and potatoes of this podcast, can you tell listeners kind of a little bit about the organization of what you do? Because as we get into the podcast, it's going to be talking about more what you're doing to better the pond. So give us kind of an overview of what Novos and Data Kinetics is all about.
Absolutely. No, I'll start with Data Kinetics, which has been around for quite a while. 1977. How many software technology companies can boast that they have been in business since 1977? So that's a pretty cool thing to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're about to celebrate a 45th birthday. That's kind of neat.
That is impressive.
So Data Kinetics is a mainframe software company. So we sell to the Fortune 500. So the biggest of the big recognizable bank names and credit card companies. We can't, of course, talk about them because of restrictive covenants and their non-disclosure agreements. But if you reach into your wallet right now, you'll probably pull out the card of a customer of Data Kinetics. So we have the software is in-memory optimization technology. The name of the product is table-based, which is literally a table-based software solution, which includes customers' data, such that when a query gets made, the query is able to look at this table, find reference data, return that answer super fast at a fraction of the price that it does to complete the transaction. So me being a finance guy, the story resonates very well with me. The two most important things are time and money, and we help customers save both of those things. So that's Data Kinetics, privately controlled Canadian company headquartered in Ottawa. One of the things that I love about the company is not only do I know every employee on a first name basis, I know the name of their spouse. We've got great loyalty. We don't have a turnover issue. We've got people who have been here for years and years. We've got people who are senior citizens who would rather keep working than retire, and that's a great badge of honor for the company. It's just a great environment to work in. So great group of people.
That says a lot about you and leadership and the culture of the company, doesn't it?
So we actually take that very seriously. Both Alan and I and Larry, we're all members of tech, and we also have Andrew in the sales and marketing team. We all very much believe in the power of people. But we're a technology company, right? So the most valuable asset that we have is people. It's not an asset that appears on a set of financial statements, right? But it's people and brains, and people who are happy to keep coming to work. That's what makes the company go around, right? So
Absolutely.
the a wonderful environment and a wonderful group of people. I'm very, very proud to be associated with that. And continuous learning, right? With tech. The reason why we met was through tech, and that's something that we commit to. And there are a lot of speakers that talk about, the value of culture, and the people that make your company be what it is. So very proud of that. And data kinetics being around for quite a while, one of the things that we had talked about too was that it was very important to have a diversification strategy. So there are many benefits to selling to the Fortune 500 banks and financial services and insurance companies, but there's also a challenge. That sector is a pretty tough sector, and they don't necessarily like talking about themselves publicly and talking about vendors that they're using for a strategic benefit. They're not really that fond of talking about that externally. So we actually took it very seriously that we wanted to have a diversification strategy and look at another company that would be related to data kinetics, but separate, that would pursue a different vertical. And we actually decided that retail would be a vertical worth pursuing. And in particular, food related technology was very appealing. Like everyone has been involved at some point, typically in their youth, working with a restaurant, working in a restaurant, right? Being a server, being involved in the operation. It's something that's very easy to resonate with. Not everyone has worked with a mainframe at a bank or an insurance company. So helping restaurant operators better run their business, very appealing to us. So we decided that would be a great diversification strategy, pursuing people who were looking at guest engagement and optimizing the experience for guests that come and dine. And of course, what's one of the most integral components of making better offers to a customer is using data. Well, we have a data background, data kinetics. The data is in the name of the company, so clearly we're a data company. So we felt a data-driven company like Omnovos, geared towards helping restaurants provide better customer service and better guest engagement, will be an ideal fit for us. So same culture and same spirit, right? We're the management team is the same across the company. So two different entities, but clearly we're related and associated, and we cohabitate together actually in the Ottawa office. And it's been a very exciting and very interesting experience. We hope to have some exciting news in the spring of 2022. But for now, we're still getting ready, making some interesting advancements and changes, and we're going to be doing a big show at Restaurants Canada in February in Toronto. So we're
Nice.
quite looking forward to that.
I spent 9 years in the restaurant industry, Randy, and the most technological piece of equipment that we had was a 5 CD changer. That's how technologically advanced we were, and a till with paper that came out of it.
Hey, pen and paper, right, is a very effective data processing system until you hit a certain size, right? So
that's right. Yeah. So I looking back, and I mean, it would have been fascinating to look back when I was in the industry, to if we had something like what you provide, right, for a better customer experience, have some data, how do we tailor what we need to do to our customer, how much of a change in business would we have had? I mean, because that was just unheard of. I mean, the most we had was, I hope you have a great day. And that was
the go-to line.
That was the go-to line. Yeah. So pretty fascinating how far that's come. So very interesting. Lots of good things happening out in our nation's capital for you. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump right into our podcast, because I want to get to know the real Randy McCoy. So Randy, what got you from being a gosling, and I mean a gosling, you're going back to your roots here, right?
Yep.
To leaving the nest when you got kicked, either you left, or you got kicked out of the nest, one of the two, to where you are today as the CFO.
You bet. Yeah, no, I'll go through a little bit of the chronology there. So actually, I'll start with a quick word in French. Actually, je suis né dans la Gaspésie. So I'm from a wonderful little village in northeastern Quebec, right on the water. It's a town called Douglastown. It's a little Scottish and Irish village in the middle of the Gaspé. So the Gaspé itself is a predominantly French-speaking region in Quebec, and Douglastown is this little English pocket. So I went to school at St. Patrick's Elementary School, went to church at St. Patrick's Parish. So I think you can kind of catch on to the theme here, right?
Yeah.
Like a little bit of Irish influence, which is where the McCoy comes from.
Yeah.
So yeah, several generations in Canada. We can trace all the way back to the 1800s that my family has been in the Gaspé. So very interesting roots there. Just that in and of itself, being an Anglophone from the Gaspé was definitely an eye opener for a lot of people that I first met when I went to school in Montreal. But yeah, I'll get there as part of my story.
When you were in there, and you're how old were you before, or how many years did you live there before you moved out?
Yeah, 17. Yeah,
17.
So
Okay.
Yeah, so I went to high school and Cégep College in that town. So, my mom was a teacher at the high school, and my dad was a blue collar worker. So that was the background. Definitely a lot of trips to church. I was a reader, never an altar boy, but I was a reader at the church, and that was always one of my highlights. I remember it vividly was going to church with my grandmother. Very, very close with my grandmother, and that was certainly a big deal for her. The really special when I got my driver's license, that was a major breakthrough because I was able to drive her to church, and probably more importantly, it meant that my grandfather didn't have to drive her to church, so he was very appreciative of that. Those very, very fond memories of growing up in the Gaspé.
So grandmother went to church. Grandfather didn't go to church. Is that what I'm hearing?
Once I was able to drive her, yes.
He was out.
Grandfather was able to step away from the church quite so often.
So really, yeah, he only went for that. Her.
You can imagine what he did in that extra free time that he
being he was Irish and no, never mind.
Pure speculation. Yeah.
Pure speculation. So was it? So you said it's predominantly English speaking in that region that you were in, though?
Just in that small Irish community, right? So it was Irish and Scottish descendants. So that was a little English pocket with English elementary school, and then in high school it was commingled with the Francophone students. So high school was in the town of Gaspé, which was a bus ride away. I could walk to everything in Douglastown. But then going to high school in Gaspé was a bus ride. So a 20 to 30 minute bus ride. I've often heard this before. People laugh about Canadians because of our massive land mass. When people say how far is it from point A to point B, a lot of Canadians will answer that's about a 30-minute drive or a 2-hour drive. It's not about the distance.
That's
it's
right.
About the duration of the drive. So I've always gotten a chuckle out of that.
I never thought about it. No one ever says, yeah, it's 120 miles, right?
Yeah.
Say it's a 2-hour drive.
Yeah, exactly. The way we're wired, right? So that was certainly the way it was there. So a lot of fond memories of the Gaspé, and I still go back every year because also that's where I met my wife. So my wife Lisa and I are high school sweethearts.
Oh, look at this! I want to hear a little more. Now you got me intrigued.
So yeah, we've known each other for a long, long time. In fact, I knew her I knew her brothers before her. So just from playing hockey together, knew her brothers even before, which is not uncommon in that neck of the woods.
So,
But yeah, we started dating in 1987, Warren.
and so you were in grade what in 1987? Like I don't want to timestamp you here, but
Yeah, no, I was in grade 11. She was in grade 9.
okay, I was going to say she had to have been younger if you were playing hockey with her brothers.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Oh, and she looks 20 years younger, but it's only 2.
Do you tell her that?
Every day.
Oh, that's why you're still married. Okay.
Happy wife.
Exactly. So how was it? My question to you is way back then when you're a Gosling, you're growing up in this, this really more of a very small English community, but living within more of obviously you're living in Quebec, so a French-based community. And how was that in school? Did you just sort of stick to your friends that were English? Did you learn French? And how did that work out as growing up in school?
Yeah, no, I definitely aspired to learn French. It's a huge asset, and it still is to this day, right? So to be able to function en français in Quebec is a wonderful, wonderful thing, especially if you have an Irish name. And the fact that you made the effort to learn French with an Irish name is actually viewed quite positively. I'm quite proud of that. And Lisa's family is French Canadian, by the way. So Saint Croix is the maiden name. So her dad's name is Jean-Baptiste Saint Croix. To help kind of clarify that. And obviously, I am a Habs fan. So even though I live in Ottawa, my heart still bleeds bleu, blanc, rouge of the Montreal Canadiens.
They played the hockey without the H.
You have to check out the hockey sweater. That's a must read as a hockey fan. It's got to be done.
Well, I'm not sure if this is going to be a Pondcast ending statement here, Randy, but I'm a Leafs fan.
My condolences.
We're always a next year country, my friend.
Hey, right now the Habs are a disaster. So I can't even gloat about the success of last year's playoffs because they're such a mess this year. So
that's
maybe
true.
next year.
Maybe next year country, right? Welcome to the club.
Exactly.
So I take it you were 17. Is that the time when you left the nest?
Yeah, time to leave the nest. So as much as I loved the Gaspè, and I still do, like I said, I go back several times every year, even though it's a minimum 12-hour drive in good weather, more like 14 to 15 in the winter. There was not a lot of business opportunity in the Gaspè when I was a young Gosling, and I was really tempted by my uncle was running a heavy equipment operator, like snow removal and heavy equipment around the house all the time. I really loved that world. I can remember, driving a loader when I was, a young boy, and it was a lot of fun. But my parents were very adamant that my marks were much too good to stay in the Gaspè as a heavy equipment operator. They really thought that I should at least dabble with university and make a decision after that. So I begrudgingly went away to Concordia. So went to school in Montreal, and I quite enjoyed that. Like I said, I did. My parents were proud of my good marks, so I studied my butt off and had a scholarship throughout my time at Concordia. Part of keeping that scholarship, though, was keeping my GPA high throughout the 3 years. So my time in university was not a rock and roll raucous time with partying and extracurricular activities. I was pretty diligent because I had to keep those marks up because I was financially motivated, as you can probably guess, if I'm a finance type. So, that was very important to me. So I was doing that and then working at the Auberge Fort Prevel in the summer. So I would go back home for the summer and worked in it was a restaurant, motel, golf course, beautiful, beautiful spot. I was actually the night auditor. So I guess even as I was a late teen at this time. I guess there was an affinity towards finance even at that age. So the night auditor literally is the graveyard shift. So kind of 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So working all night, watching the sunrise. So the Gaspè is located on the Baie de Chaleur, kind of close to where the Gulf of St. Lawrence River exits. And close to the Atlantic Ocean. But it's a beautiful, beautiful, picturesque area, mountains and ocean and forest everywhere. So all summer long, I basically would watch the sunrise, at 4 in the morning. So it was a pretty fun summer job, but it was also in, that restaurant and hotel, the hospitality space. So coming all the way back to the Novo story.
But
so that's
interesting.
what I was doing.
I have to ask you here. I have to ask you here, Randy, because this is interesting. Because I mean, I'm not sure how many children, when they grow up, aspire to be a CFO. So like I have yet to hear a child say, when I grow up, I want to be a CFO. Yeah. So when you look back, and that's why I'm asking this question, because you have my curiosity intrigued here. Because you were in university, but you were going back. You were pretty young, right? And you were doing night auditors. So obviously you were doing it out of obviously of interest sake. If you're pulling graveyards, you're not doing it just for the sake of money, because there was other jobs you could have done. Yeah. So when you look back, I mean, even as a kid in school, did you have that natural affinity to numbers and math and equations and just putting things together really easily in your mind?
Yeah, so I vividly remember as a very small boy working on my homework, and just everything was just effortless, right? And like my parents would look at that as like, how do you know that? I'm like, well, it's just obvious, isn't it? That's what the answer would be. And like they're looking at each other, it's like this is weird. And then doing it in front of my grandparents as well, doing homework in front of my grandparents, where and I remember my Irish grandmother, she was looking at it and she's like, Randy really has a way with figures. That really comes naturally to him. And I guess that stuck. Like just knowing that this was something that I was good at, and it came easily to me. I used to be a math tutor as well in high school. It just and what people would usually say is, you have a way of explaining it that's a lot easier to understand than how the teacher explains it. So I guess I was onto something there that it's those skills were natural, but maybe the secret sauce was the ability to actually communicate was more what was important. It's not just about the numbers and it's not just about the math, right? But it's really, how do you start translating that for people who aren't comfortable with numbers? And in fact, when we talk about bettering the pond, right? Like the reason, one of the key reasons why I do what I do in the area of financial literacy ties all the way back to that from my youth.
And that's where that is going to be coming up in the podcast to talk all about that. And that's why you're here to begin with. So this is really fascinating. So you went to Concordia, and this is going to sound like a kind of a silly question, but I just have to ask, right? What did you take in when you went to university?
It's funny you ask, because there is a little bit of a funny side story to that, Warren. What I actually studied at Concordia, so of course it was a BCom that I was in pursuit of, which had a lot of accounting courses in it. But at the time, I was actually quite fascinated with this area of the program was called Administrative Management. It had a lot of organizational theory and organizational policy, and that seemed very interesting to me as well. And that's where, when we talk about things like corporate culture, I would say a lot of my affinity towards working on corporate culture comes from. That was a passion while I was going to school. Like that seemed like a very natural fit for me at the time. But the interesting story was I graduated in 1992 when we were post a massive recession that essentially eliminated the concept of middle management in corporate North America. So whereas the job fairs at Concordia typically had 100 people, 100 companies who were doing recruiting on site, the year I was graduating, there were 8 employers instead of 100. And the 8 employers, I remember them by name, but it was Revenue Canada, Revenue Quebec, and the big 6 accounting firms. Didn't really want to work for Revenue Canada or Revenue Quebec. So I said, okay, all my accounting marks are really good. I've got a minor in accounting. Maybe I'll try that. I'll throw my hat in the ring to see if I can get a job at one of these big 6 accounting firms. And as fate would have it, I turned up to be a great fit at Arthur Andersen. So long before the things that happened in the media with Arthur Andersen, they were completely exonerated, by the way. No wrongdoing whatsoever by Arthur Andersen. But it was a great firm. Really learned a ton there. So got hired in as an auditor at Arthur Andersen, and you have to do. To become a CA, like when I was going through the process to become a CA, right now it's a CPA CA, but at that time, to get your credentials, you had to do a minimum 2-year work co-op basically with the CA firm. You had to be an apprentice for a couple of years. I worked there for 26 months. That was more than enough for me to be convinced that I did not want to be an auditor forever. I liked the area, I liked parts of the work, but not auditing itself. That was not for me. But what it was a springboard to clients, because I had clients there who quite liked me. One of the badges of honor, if you are an auditor, it's always a badge of honor when a client asks for you to be back next year. So that was I'm happy to say that was something that often happened, where I had clients who would put a note in with the manager to say, can I have that one back next year? So that was kind of cool. So I ended up having a client hire me right out of my minimum service level in the firms. I was a manufacturing company in Montreal. And then a couple years later, I had a different client in Montreal who reached out and asked me to come work for them, which was a great decision. That was Discrete Logic back in the day. That was the fall of 1995 back in the day. And that was a great experience working with Discrete Logic. So they did special effects for the movie industry. So this was around the era of Titanic, and that was a great moneymaker for Discrete Logic. And then how I ended up, so in a way I left the nest again. So this was all Montreal, this era. And then the next nest departure was really moving from Montreal to Ottawa, which was, again, thanks to this stay at Discrete Logic. That company got acquired by Autodesk, the large US company based in California that does AutoCAD. So they acquired Discrete Logic as a diversification strategy for them to get into the entertainment sector. But at the same time, this was in late 98, early 99. We had just had our first son, Ryan, and we had visited Ottawa a few times on vacation and loved Ottawa. Quaint little city, very clean, a lot smaller than Montreal. We quite liked it and said, we said that would be a nice place to raise a family. It's still pretty close, still driving distance to the Gaspè, but a smaller city, and we just felt that would be nice for us. So I mentioned it to my boss at the time that I'm starting the interview with a company in Ottawa. We really want to move. And he had said, really would hate to see you leave. Autodesk is a big company with a lot of opportunity. I'd really like to try and convince you to stay. I'm going to talk to head office and see if we can get a retention bonus to keep you here. He reached out to head office in California and talked about this. I've got someone on my team that wants to move to Ottawa, and I really don't want him to go. I really like him to stay. And they're like, he wants to move to Ottawa, Ontario, Canada? And like, yeah. Well, why do you ask? Okay, we need to get a non-disclosure signed. We're doing an acquisition in Ottawa, and there's going to be an opening in the finance chair. So if this kid is so good that you want to keep him, are you saying that he'd be good enough to get a promotion for this finance job in Ottawa? And as fate would have it, I'm super proud of that story because I had the relationship with my manager to tell him the truth, right? To tell him what was happening and to just be human, right? Be be normal and human and communicative. And that led to Autodesk moving my family and I from Montreal to Ottawa. Company paid move, very, very professionally run, a great experience. And and ended up moving to Ottawa with the company, with a promotion and a great experience at Autodesk. So that really was a wonderful time. Unfortunately, my time at Autodesk came to an end when we were actually interviewing in California when 9/11 happened. So my wife and I and son Ryan were looking at houses in Petaluma, California, when that infamous day occurred. So but when that happened, the thoughts of relocating to California were certainly off the table, and there were no more upward mobility opportunities in Ottawa at the time. Right, my upward path would have been to move to head office, and that was just off the table when that happened. So I ended up working for another a services company in Ottawa called XWave. And then from there, ended up moving to a company called WebPlan, which most people now would recognize as Kinaxis, the supply chain software company. Very much enjoyed my time at Kinaxis and still have friends there. But at the time, I wanted to become a CFO, as you had mentioned, probably even in my youth. It seemed like that was probably something I wanted to do. And Kinaxis had a CFO at the time, and he was still young and wasn't going anywhere. And even though it was a great job and a great environment, my ability to move upward was blocked. So then I heard about this opportunity at a mainframe software company called Data Kinetics. And when the recruiter called, I said, mainframe? Is that still a thing? Little did I know at the time just how powerful and robust and relevant the mainframe still was and still is to this day. So that was very interesting. So keeping an open mind is a very good thing to do. And then meeting with Alan Zander, you've met Alan as well, and we just totally clicked. So actually. One of the things that very much resonated for me is one of my interviews at Data Kinetics was Alan took me to a hockey game. So one of my interviews was a hockey game together to watch the Sens. And it was at that moment I knew it's like, I can work with this guy. We can definitely collaborate and do some great things together because there is compatibility above and beyond just business here. And to me, that's a big part of my DNA is you have to have compatibility and that ability for many things to intersect together at the same time is essential to me personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's a lot of the work that I do as well, is trying to create that synergy or that collaborativeness, right? When you have two different people put in their efforts together, it's amazing. There's a African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And right,
Yep,
same
that
philosophy.
makes sense. Makes
This
sense to me.
I have to give you a sort of this is kind of an accounting pun, but I mean, obviously you have been an asset to
Boom, boom.
boom boom. But wait, there's more. But no, really, like if you sort of sit back and reflect and look back, it's like you never really had to look for work. Like everyone
No,
kept coming to you to say, hey, what can you do for us? What can you do for us? So you were always being asked to be a part of something, versus you having to ever go look. That's pretty fast. Like when you look back at it, it's pretty fascinating.
yeah, no, that's cool. Certainly appreciative of that.
Yeah. All right. So I'm trying to be a good steward of time here, Randy. So we've got you from being a gosling to leaving the nest to where you are today. So, I believe that we are all odd ducks, Randy. I believe that we're all misfits. So can you just tell me about a time where you didn't fit in, where you were different, and it could be positive or negative, and what did you do differently to stand out?
Well, I'm hoping that it's already come across in this conversation, Warren, that I'm a finance guy with a sense of humor. So that in and of itself helps me stand out. I'm different than the prototypical finance guy. That should have already been obvious to you.
You just had to state it.
So it's actually it's something I wear it as a badge of honor. When I was at an IT conference a couple of years ago, just before COVID, actually, and Alan introduced me as a speaker at this IT conference in Las Vegas. So CMG, the Computer Measurement Group, it's a very relevant organization for people who are in, especially finance, IT, our particular sector. So I actually have a presentation on how to get your business case supported with your finance partner, which is geared towards IT professionals. So it's a little bit of a niche that's different. So most of the presentations are quite technical in nature, but this is one that's more in the business stream, but for people who are IT professionals. And that's actually how Alan introduces me is, you're about to meet a CFO who breaks the mold. He is not at all your prototypical CFO, and I take great pride in that. Of having a sense of humor has served me very well in life, and a little bit of self-deprecating humor goes a long way too. So I know I can be easy to make fun of myself, and if it beats someone else to the punch, then
Yeah, there you go. Don't take yourself so seriously. So where do you contribute?
One of the other things, sorry, Warren, but one of the other things that I also take very seriously, and I've touched on that too, is that I'm a finance guy who also leads with the heart, not just with the numbers, right? And I do think that goes back to some of the the background with my grandmother, right? The way I grew up, and the roots of the Gaspè very much come across that way of we are in it together, and the bottom line is important, but the bottom line will take care of itself if people are happy, right? People are happy and engaged, and that manifests itself to customers, and happy people who have happy customers, fiddly-dee, will probably have financial profits flow from that too. So I take that very seriously. And in fact, I wear the HR hat within Data Kinetics and Omnovos, in addition to the finance hat. So we all wear many hats in a
Yes.
in a small private company, right?
Absolutely do. So it's interesting you led into something that I was actually just gonna, when I was trying to cut you off there a little bit, was to lead into that and say, looking back, and here you are, a CFO with a sense of humor. Yes, that does make you an odd duck. And a CFO who leads with their heart and not their head, that again makes you an odd duck. But looking back, where do you think that stemmed from? Did that stem from your environment growing up? Did that stem from your grandmother? Where did that sort of come? Where did that richness come from?
Yeah, I definitely attribute it to my roots in the Gaspé. It was very much we grew up as a community, and when we talk about everyone knows everyone,
Mhm.
that's not a cliche. That's not an expression. Like literally, where I grew up, everyone knew everyone, and right, like, you knew each other's siblings. Well, I mentioned it about Lisa, right? That
Right.
I knew her brothers before her, just from playing hockey. So it very much was a close knit community, and if something bad happened, everybody knew. Something good happened, everybody knew. And to me, is I guess that stuck with me as whatever you do in life, you have to be part of a community. You
Mhm.
can't be looking at it alone. You can't be looking at it selfishly without that give and take of your community. Um, you'd really be just wandering alone.
Yep.
But
No,
your quote, I didn't know, I didn't know you were going to use that quote, but that really did say it well.
yeah, that's I mean, it's interesting, and I love the fact that you took your roots and then but then hung on to that, and then you just you let that lead you through your life and weave it. That's very commendable.
Well, look at what I'm wearing.
Yeah, I know. I commented on when I first got on. It was like I was expecting blue polo shirt, but no, we got the Canadian plaid. Again, I told you I was like thoroughly impressed. Thoroughly impressed. All
That's great.
right. All right. So, can you tell me, Randy, about a time where someone did something for you that left an impact on your life?
Oh, there's a few. I won't limit it to someone because there's too many. So if I still have the time, I'll give you a couple. But definitely, my parents with their work ethic definitely left an indelible impression there. So high school teacher and blue-collar worker. So work ethic was very much driven into me. And one of my observations in particular with my mom at the high school, I found she was quite tough on me. And I remember saying, it's like, why are you so hard on me in class? Like, I'm a really good student. I'm polite. Like, what am I doing wrong? And she said, I have seen other teachers coddle their kids, and there's no way I'm going to do that to you. I'm like, okay, I get it. And in hindsight, I appreciated it because my friends in the community were often, it would often make the comment of, I feel for you. It seems like your mom was really hard on you. That must be really difficult. It's like, no, she's not actually. I think she's just doing it in school. But there was obviously a lesson in there, right? That
Mhm.
you know, work hard, and don't necessarily think you deserve it. Earn it,
Right.
and then it'll be worth a lot. So that obviously stuck with me a
Hmm.
long time. Um, and for me, early in my career, I told the story about working in Montreal. I had a VP finance um, quite early in my career who we had some turnover in the department, and he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "I'm going to promote you. You're the kind of leader that I want to transform this department because yeah, you're strong technically, but what I've noticed is that people attach to you. You get people. You're good with people. And not a lot of finance people are as good with people as you are. So even though you're earlier in your career, you're the kind of guy that's going to help lead this department." Um, and so, in my opinion, he took a major chance on me. Right, his name was Giovanni. I still stay in touch with him. And what do you think I did for that guy? I busted my tail. Right? I worked my butt off to prove him right. Because, in my opinion, he took a chance on me. So that had to be paid back in effort. So that meant a lot. And sorry, Warren, I'm just
That's-
gonna take a drink.
By all means.
My Irish roots. And then I already talked a little bit about Alan Sander, my current CEO. He is very much the CEO who says to me, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. You've got a story to tell. You've got this business case example. It's like, the most finance people are a back of office type. So I want you out front. I actually want you talking to customers. I want you presenting at an industry event because I'm proud of you. I want you to be, telling that story externally. And same thing, right? Like when the CEO is proud of you and wants to put you on an external view, obviously you want to reward him with the loyalty and the performance that comes with that. So those are more background and work, but I certainly wouldn't be complete without talking about my wife, Lisa, and our two boys. So the reality is, without their support, I'm taken away from home often, right? And even when I'm at home, my headspace is not always in the immediate zone, right? As it relates to work. So their support is obviously instrumental. So the things they do on a daily basis, they keep me going. I'm very grounded by and appreciative of.
It's interesting. I just made a little note here. I was saying, it sounds like, there's a couple different things about you, Randy, that I'm picking up from this conversation is, number one, you're a natural communicator. And I think that's sort of weaved itself through and what makes you so really good at what you do as a human. But I think, I kind of wrote down your recipe for success was, some tough love with some really great work ethic and some built-in confidence. And there's your recipe for success right there.
Not a bad recipe, I guess.
All right, here's where I want to go.
Let that simmer in a pot for
That's
about
right.
an hour.
Exactly. Yeah, and obviously it's a great recipe because it works. So I want to get to the meat and potatoes of this here, Randy, why we're here. And so what are you doing now presently to better the pond? And the question is why you're doing it. And so I've got some notes here too. But I'm going to let you run this show of why we're here. What are you doing to better the pond?
Yeah, well, let me start with the financial literacy one. So, and I think part of this comes from my mom as well. Being a teacher. So I believe there's a bit of a gap in the education system where financial literacy is not really taught the way certain other courses are taught. But I think it's an integral part of success in life in general, is having financial literacy. So I actually saw this ad one day through my son's school, where this group here in Ottawa called the Ottawa Network for Education, and they're affiliated with Junior Achievement Canada. They put out this call to parents who would be willing to volunteer for a day to teach a class. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is very interesting. And I'm blessed to work for Data Kinetics, where actually one of the things Data Kinetics provides for is a paid volunteering day. As part of our leave policy, we actually encourage people to give back a day paid on the company. No need to tap into your vacation allowance. This is a granted thing from the company. Spend a day on a cause that's important to you. So I actually put my hat in the ring to be a presenter at this junior achievement seminar. It was an Economics for Success program. So what it is it teaches grade 8 students about a few key topics. So goal setting, interviewing skills, but more importantly, understanding budgets and understanding the concept of take-home pay versus gross pay, and understanding a little bit about debt and understanding more about credit card traps. And at first I was wondering, it's like, will I be able to keep the attention of, 13-year-old students, right? It's like, there's a lot of adults who struggle to pay attention to financial discussion. It's a little intimidating to be able to keep the kids' interest. It was just incredible, Warren. I felt very much in my element, coaching these kids, talking with them, doing some presentations, doing some interaction back and forth, and it flowed so well. And at one point, so there's a teacher who's monitoring as well, right? Because of the the safety concerns and such. So the teacher says to the other volunteers, so this is the first time I've done it, and the teacher says, "How many years has Randy been a teacher?" And the other volunteer says, "No, he's not a teacher. He's a CPA." "Oh, how many times has he done this seminar already?" "No, this is his first time." That's impossible. It seems like a natural, like he it seems like he's been doing this forever, sort of thing. So maybe some of that was from my mom, right? I guess some of it came naturally. But I was blown away at the way the kids resonated. Like, they were working on these exercises where you've got the teenagers who are saying, my budget doesn't balance. I guess I need to cut some of my spending to get this back in balance, like Mr. Randy said. And I'm thinking to myself, we've got politicians who don't understand this concept. I've got teenagers who, with one day of a seminar, are getting it better than certain other people that I see in Ottawa. My satisfaction level was through the roof, right? So I was giving, but I received way more than I gave. It was incredibly enlightening, and just seeing how engaged they were blew me away. And at the end of the day, the kids all signed a thank you card, and like I had a student who drew a piece of art, numerous messages, thanking me. It was such a great change of pace from a day at school, and just it really exceeded my expectations. It was like, okay, this is something that has to be talked about more. Like, this can't be a one-time thing. I have to do, I have to commit to doing this every year. I have got to talk about this with more people, and financial literacy just has to become something that's a staple. So above and beyond doing it with Junior Achievement Canada, I also signed up to be a financial literacy volunteer with the CPA Canada finance literacy program. So unfortunately, because of COVID, that's been a little compromised. But once things are back in action here, I look forward to getting back out at least a day a year, but more than that when I can, to talk about financial literacy. And in fact, November is Financial Literacy Month in Canada. So it's definitely something that I believe in. We really want to see youth exiting school who have some of these financial literacy concepts. And I guess even if I tie it back to that conference from a data kinetics perspective, essentially helping get your business case approved with your finance partner, it's financial literacy too, right? It's helping IT people speak to finance people, just like helping kids understand financial concepts before they become earners and spenders. So that's very, very, very important to me.
Absolutely. And I really think that is so needed in our high schools. I mean, I watch, my son went through a little bit of that. It wasn't a whole lot, but yeah, my son is he's definitely good on the spending. The saving is a little bit different story. But
there's still time, Warren.
But and I know that they've done a little bit of it in school, but there wasn't a whole lot. And I really see that there's a big gap and such a need. I mean, it's one of the things we're not teaching kids is how do you be, like financial literacy, like, because you're going to have to deal with that the rest of your life. and
Exactly.
who's there to teach you, right?
Yep.
I mean, parents can, but really, when you think about it, how many parents are
Well,
really?
we didn't. I certainly didn't get that going to school, right?
Neither did I.
Yep.
Right? I mean, I learned it in business, but I'd sort of learned, I went to the school of hard knocks that way. So,
That's a good teacher. Yeah.
yeah. So, I think, I mean, and good on you, for doing that and taking that on to help kids understand that. And that's very, very, I mean, it's relevant, and it's just needed. And you're providing such an incredible service to kids, for their future. So, I applaud you for that effort.
Thank you.
And you're also working with the Ottawa Therapy Dogs, and
Yep.
I've been a
Yep.
dog rescue, or I've been a dog foster for dog rescue, so I'm playing a little bit in that animal world, to try to help out in my way. And what are you doing in that aspect, Randy?
Yeah, so Ottawa Therapy Dogs, very good cause as well. So it's all about mental wellness, right? So I think in particular, a lot of people have had a hard time through COVID. So
Mm.
I definitely think this is an underutilized resource, which animal assisted intervention, right? To help with people who are struggling with a wide range of issues, be it physical, mental health, any type of challenge, rehab, right? Sometimes having a different source of support that isn't necessarily a person or literature or whatever, a furry friend can really make a difference. And you see people, even through COVID, um, the charity actually did this notion of a Paw Pals program, which was writing letters to students in school. So again, helping youth as well, where it resonates. Um, and kids, you see teachers who are having an absolute blast when they get a letter with a paw print on it, and
Mm.
it's coming from the context of a dog who's speaking to this kid in grade 3 or 4, and it brightens their day. And so you can tell, just even with that small example, just how powerful it can be for positive energy. And with that charity, I'm a volunteer treasurer. And so having that same idea, having the financial skill, like coming into a charity, a very grassroots charity, not a lot of people with finance backgrounds
Mm.
in the organization, right? So it's something where you can clearly make a difference in a hurry because you're bringing in a skill set that is needed to help with the charity. And it's yet another good cause that I find we don't get enough attention for it. So that's part of our collective mission too, as the board, is to help talk more about that and just make it be more aware.
It's kind of like, you're kind of like the bass player in the band, Randy. It's right that, you never ever see anybody really giving a lot of applause for the bass player. And right, it's always the front man. And so the same thing on the finance side, right? How many people are giving praise to the auditor or the
Not so
finance
common,
person,
yeah.
right?
But yeah, no, help provide that stable and steady base.
Yeah, there you go. And that's why you're on this podcast, is to actually, and the whole idea behind this podcast, right, is to celebrate people who are doing things to better the pond. So here you go. This you are now you're front and center on the stage, and you're getting the full round of applause just for you.
Thank you, Warren.
All right, I'm trying to be a good steward of time here, Randy, and I love what you're doing, and it's fantastic. So my last question to you for today is, if you were standing on top of a mountain and the whole world was intently listening to you, what would you say?
Give back. We really are in it together. You have to have community. This can't be an exception. This notion that employers are working with educational institutions and with government in a cohesive manner, to me, is what we all need here. We really need to see people coming together, and it's it's a give and take. My quick example about, I gave time and energy to the students, but I received way more than what I feel I gave. And I think if more people were wired that way, if more companies were wired that way, if the government was wired that way, if educational institutions were wired that way, we'd all be in a better place.
I wholeheartedly agree, my friend. There's such a, the thing is, what's been the beauty of it too is giving without any expectations of receiving. The gift is in itself, right? And I think that's what you're trying to say. All right, so Randy, I really want to thank you for your time today. The CFO, the sense of humor, I love it, and and I want to thank you also for being like such a natural communicator. I want to thank you for everything you're doing to better the pond. I mean, you are making the world a better place, and it's not just in the, with the financial literacy. I think it goes so much farther than that, because you're doing it with data kinetics, you're doing it on Novus, I'm sure you're doing it with their family, you're doing it with the community, you're doing it when you go back home. So really, from my heart to yours, I really want to thank you for everything that you're doing to better the pond.
Thanks, Warren, for the opportunity. Thanks for letting me sing for a change.
Yeah. See, you're the front man. So if anybody wants to find you, Randy, where's the best place to go to find you?
LinkedIn is probably the best spot. So I'm out there on LinkedIn. There a little bit more often. I'm also out there on Twitter with a CFO, DKL CFO handle. So, but LinkedIn is the go-to. That's the best place for me.
So Randy McCoy on LinkedIn.
Yep.
And then of course we have
data kinetics. It'll be easy to spot me. Exactly. Right. Working at Data Kinetics and on Novos and Ottawa Therapy Dogs. They're all on the LinkedIn profile. That's the best
go-to place for you. Excellent. All right. So there you have it, folks. We had a great time here today with Randy McCoy. It was fascinating talking to you. Again, thank you for everything that you're doing to better the pond. And this is Warren Berry flocking off to take you beyond the pond to better the pond, because we're better together. Thank you so much, Randy.
Thanks, Warren. We'll see you. Stay safe.